Yeah, you were more comfortable.
He's really focusing too hard on where he's looking at. You got to start testing it out.
We've been taking everything down to Leonardo, so we can't do it ourselves. Donnie did the brakes for us a while back. But, we haven't needed to do anything to the light truck yet. Hasn't needed them. I mean, it's.
We don't have to slow down.
Yeah. Yeah, the brakes last 300,000 miles at night. Yeah, not so much. But yeah, no, I don't know who was for a set of brakes. Well, if they're gonna redo all the seals in those axles, that is quite a bit of labor right there. Just the percentage of it or something. Oh no, Mike. You can take that for
Oh, yeah. Yeah, not me. I'm not a person.
How to make your wife happy? I have a plan. I'm going to help her plan from the plan. Take photos of her with her plan.
that last one is a pretty dangerous question. Well, don't dig them up until they've been looking that way for a year, because we had one we thought was completely dead. We planted it and came back.
So we had to audit the first one, and they like the last, they started that big.
You gotta be careful with that many on a young tree. Though. It can
Oh, yeah, we're
kill
gonna.
itself trying So Bob's not available tonight, I take it. No, I mean other Bob.
He's on vacation.
That's
No, Bob Jones.
yeah. I'm aware. I forgot that there were two Bobs to possibly get confused.
You know?
Yeah. Okay, I think we'll call this meeting to order. And we'll call the meeting to order.
Yo.
Start with roll call. Lon Sutherland.
Here.
Clay Thomas.
Here.
And me here. Grace Durkee. And I would like to start with a moment of silence in honor of our board member, Bob Scott, who passed away last night. Okay, so we have, we need the approval of the minutes.
I make a motion that we approve the next one, last one. I guess.
Additions to the agenda? Oh, sorry.
It could come inside of the case report, but I'm gonna have to submit it.
Yeah, I'll bring that up. Yeah. So, I vote that we approve the minutes.
Aye.
All right, emergency edition one is, because of the vacancy, left by Bob Scott, we need to get a fifth board member. This is important because of the budget, that if, should the levy pass tomorrow, then we are going to have an adjusted schedule for the budget committee. I have that schedule and I'll go through that shortly. But we would need to change this meeting next month, shift it by a week so that there's time to have the budget committee and a second budget committee meeting if necessary, so that the board can vote and approve the budget. It's contingent upon the levy passing. But that is something that we really need to have 5 board members be able to be present to deal with that budget. So, because we had both Bennett and Mike were in March, again, had applied for the budget and sort of applied for the board and had already been vetted. I move that we vote for one of these two gentlemen to be.
Well, right now, we're in emergency additions to the agenda. Don't we want to just add that?
Yeah, that's an ad, okay, that's the addition to the agenda. The other one is to get a report from Christopher about a water tender.
Okay. I think personally that we should add the new board member after 6, after the financial report and chief's report, but before anything else. So it'd be like 6.5 when we talk about the board member and vote, unless somebody else has got a different idea.
Okay. Any other additions?
We want to put this where after chief's report before the board or anything.
Or just in the chief's report.
And the chief report, too, is what the board, okay.
Anything else? Okay, then Joyce is going to fill in for Bob for the financial report, which we
Okay, going with blue ink is where I'll start. Okay, it says our balance brought forward was $216,670.16. And the total, and you can look through these, I'm sure you got an email about this. So I'm just gonna touch the main one. So total in the general fund, $225,398.44. For our personnel expense payments and stipends with $3,000 for checks and monies that we have to move around, $9,617.03. Total this, and then there was almost 19,000 that would had to do with the site business. So the total disbursements were $31,534.71. And then it says all total accounts together, we have $251,103.76. Then under the general fund and equipment reserve fund, we have, it shows there how much money was spent. We got for the grant that we have in the savings account minus outstanding checks. And then it says our cash reserve now is $74,920.76. If you have any questions, you'll have to state them below. On the second page, it tells us our income revenue that came in on the first section. And it says the year to date is $386,108.49. And again, we have a list of all the expenditures for personnel, operations, facilities, emergency services, medical supplies, insurance, and office expenses are listed there. Continuing on the other side, we have trainings and conferences, dues and prescriptions, legal expenses, audit, and contingency. Just kind of list how much money has been spent, how much money we have left. We're at, okay, so this is through April, the month of April, the bill could have been paid. So we have kind of the final budget with the percentage business. That has to do with how much money we have spent out of the amount we budgeted. And we still have 2 months left to go. So if we're around 69–70%, which a lot of them are, then we've spent most of the money, but we still have enough coming in. So that's kind of how I think that in my head. So at the bottom it says percent of actuals versus budget minus brand expenses is 69.6%. So it sounds like we're pretty much where we expected to be on what we budgeted.
Any questions about medical stuff?
I'll make a motion that we accept the financial report.
Aye.
Okay, chief's report.
Alright, we currently have 14 responding volunteers. In addition, we have 5 specialty volunteers for apparatus and buildings. This is, I'll read what I have, and then this is where Christopher can give an update on apparatus. Construction continues on the seismic retrofit at Station 1. Station content is not critical for operations of store on Drive. Our structural engine and water tender is stored in responding out of West Farm School property. The rescue truck, and fuel reduction are running out of Station 3 Alliance Park. Fixing attendance at 260, we're still at Station 2 on the west end of Milk Creek Drive. And we're using Station 3 upstairs, which has sat empty for a while as our training. And we need not choose perhaps. Pittsburgh.
Yeah, just a second. Let me see if I'm smart enough to operate this here. So we've been needing more water capacity for a while. And I found, if you look here on this was actually listed on Facebook, and it might look a little familiar. It's one of our old trucks actually that we surplused when we bought our current water tender. The gentleman that has that is willing to trade us straight across for our Type 3 engine 6261 that we don't really use. We don't have enough money to buy a new water tender right now. We don't, and we need more capacity. So we've been discussing with him the possibility of that trade. So that's a 1968 Dodge D890 is what that is. It's an easier truck to drive than our current water tender, just the way the transmission, it's tighter. It's actually got synchro in most of the forward gears. It's hauls about the same amount of water. So with this, we would then once we do a little bit of work to it, we'd be in position to be able to run a tender shuttle with two 4,000-gallon tenders, basically, to improve our ISO score with alternative water to more of the district than we currently can. Because right now, with only one tender, we're pretty limited how far out that alternative water will reach from a water source. Once you have two trucks and you can say that they're both in circuit, that would help greatly. The only issue with that truck right now is we sold it with a pump in it. Currently, it comes with a pump, but it's not bolted in it because the guy that bought it in between us and the person who owns it now took that pump out and was going to put a bigger, better one in it. And it has a bigger, better one with it, but it's not currently mounted in the truck. So I looked at it, penciled it out. It looks like it'd probably take 2 to 3 weekends of work and no more than, $1,000 worth of materials, probably much less than that, to get it up and running and pumping better than it ever did. The pump that it comes with looks to be out of a fire engine instead of a water tender, so it'll probably have about 40% more flow than it did with the old pump. I wish we had the old pump. We could just throw it in there, but we don't. That's the one drawback to this truck. Other than that, I went up there and inspected it in person. It's just north of Portland because I was up there for work. Crawled all over it, fired it up, moved it. It's a really low mileage truck too. I think it's only got like 40,000 miles on it from 1968 till now. It was District 3's water truck, and then Shady Cove's water truck, and then it was ours. And then it was felt that the truck we have now would be a better truck, but it has some issues and we just need more capacity. So even ignore it, we need more, and this would probably be our first out water engine or tender until we can look at a grant or saving some money from the levy if it passes to get a newer used water tender to upgrade one of them. I'm trying to find, sorry, I thought I was better prepared than this. I was trying to find some more pictures. I thought I could just scroll through them here.
Well, Christopher's looking for that. When the ISO guy came and did the presentation in this room, he explained that one way to lower ISO to improve your ISO rating is have water hydrants that cover your entire district. That's not going to happen anytime soon for us. But the other ways, you have water tenders that can supply, and the standard is for 2 hours without a break, and supply enough water to fight us for up to 2 hours. We cannot do that with one water tender because you got to go and fill it and come back. But with two, we can stack them and keep running laps. And so this would be a way that we can supply water to our entire district in the event of a structure fire for 2 solid hours or plus 4 more.
So to that end, this picture right here showing the back end of this truck, which has something that that our current water tender does not have because it's a converted road watering truck. It's this big dump valve on the back that allows you to empty that tender in like 1 minute into a porta tank and then start going back to get more water instead of having to pump it out with the pump. I would estimate our current tender, even with a wide open line, you're probably looking at 5 to 8 minutes to pump all the water out of the tank before you can start your return trip, instead of 1 to 2 minutes with that dump valve. So that should make it a lot faster for around, because that's what ISO uses. We have to give them our tested, and we have to swear we did it, our fill times with the water source we're going to use and our dump times. And then they add in the road mileage. They figure in whatever is 55 miles an hour, and that's how they figure out whether you can maintain that flow or not. So if we have a dump valve like that on the back of the tender, it basically takes that time to almost nothing, and it should help a lot with that total, making it to that 2 hours of 250 gallons per minute.
So we present this to the board so that you guys are well aware of what we're working on. We don't need any action from you. We appreciate your input if you have thoughts on it, but this is something that we think about a lot and work with a lot in operations, and we want you guys to be aware that there's something we're working on.
And this is just a picture of the truck we're talking about trading him. We don't use it very much. It's a nice truck. We're glad to have it, but it's been out on, I believe, 2 calls in the last year.
The dog's not part of the trade.
No, you're not saying anything about Fonda. She's part of the trade. That's all right. Anyway, the major issue with this truck is that it's a great crew hauler. It's not a great water hauler. It only holds about 600 gallons of water, so it only holds 100 gallons more than our Type 6 pickup truck, brush truck, and yet it's a much bigger, heavier truck, and it's designed to haul 5 people. And we would very rarely do we need to haul 5 people. We need the water. So.
I got a question.
Yeah.
So in order to use that dump valve on the back of that, you'd have to have something to dump the water into.
Correct. And if I go back, see if I can find it here. On the side that I don't have a picture of here, but there's or maybe you can't see it. There's actually rails on the other side of the tank to hold a porta tank on the side of the truck, so you're carrying your tank with you. And we have several of these big porta tanks. So the idea is you deploy either this one, or several of our other engines carry a porta tank as well. You deploy that on the fire ground, and that's what you're going to dump into, and the trucks are going to be pulling out of that. And
It's
that's
like a big vital above ground swimming.
yeah, it looks like it looks like a very shallow, like a wading pool, only it's much bigger. So we have one that holds 4,000 gallons, one that holds, the pumpkin is like, it's huge. It's like 6,000 gallons.
Have you guys ever used those?
We have about once a year so far. We've been setting up a drill that deals with water supply, and we deploy them. And we've used them on a couple of wildland incidents.
So it's a realistic thing.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the way the big boys do it too. If you're going to deal with alternative water and have to have a tender shuttle, they all will set up a big porta tank and start dumping into it. The one thing that they do a little different on the newer ones is they'll have like a cement truck. They'll have an actual like ramp that you can pivot from that, so you can hit a dump tank that's off to the side. This one, you're going to have to set up your tank where you can get directly to it. For the really fast tender shuttles, like in back east, I've watched a lot of fire response videos, and they actually have them with a side, like a flume, like a cement truck, and they'll actually like have a row of those trucks lined up, and they're just constantly dumping into the tank. But they're flowing a lot more water than 250 gallons a minute too. So.
Why didn't we originally do it?
So the backstory on that, there was an issue with the power steering pump, which has been replaced on this. And at the time, either a former board member or a board member, I can't remember which, had a friend that was trying to get out of the logging business that owned our current water tender and really needed to sell it. And so we decided it made sense for both them and for us, because we had to spend money on a power steering pump. And we didn't realize some of the limitations of this truck to swap, or to buy that truck from this gentleman that was a friend of, and then sell this truck at auction is what we did. And then since then, somebody's fixed the power steering pump, and that was really the only issue that we had with the truck. But it on paper, it looked like a really good deal. We went from a 68 to a 97 model year water tender. So that's why we originally got rid of it, was just it had a minor issue, and we had somebody that was in need, and it looked like a better truck to us because we didn't understand, number one, that the pump wasn't as big as we would have liked. Number two, it doesn't have a dump valve. Number three, it can't draft natively like this one can. You have to have a separate pump to draft with that truck, because it was designed to be a road watering truck. They figured you're going to pull up to a water source, fill it, go out and water some roads, and come back. So.
That other pump you're going to install it, we'll still draft.
Yes, we're gonna be putting it right into the plumbing, right where the original was, so it'll still have draft capability. The problem with the one that's there is the way it's plumbed, it's like bolted right to the bottom of the tank, and you really can't insert something in there to have a different water supply than the tank without a major rework. And then this one isn't a cab over, so that you don't have that mile of loose shifter linkage, so you can't feel which gate you're in front of. That's my biggest problem driving this one here. I can drive it, but my biggest issue is I can just get lost because there's not a lot of, feedback feeling where you are. It's kind of, am I in front of 3 or 5? Well, I guess we'll find out. Nope. So,
I've drove a lot of cab overs in my life.
yeah, on that cab over, I think is probably a little bit looser than some, but they're all going to have that just because you're going through so many linkages to get back to the transmission. This is a top loader. The shifter is in the cab going straight into the transmission, so you don't have all that. And on paper, it's worth, I think we're probably looking at about a $2,000 loss from what he's asking for this versus what we could probably sell that other truck for, but then you'd have to deal with floating the cost of the tender, then selling that truck and hoping that we're right, that we actually get what you see things listed for online. And then, so that's why we're recommending or considering just doing a straight across swap and getting something that we can improve our SO rating for, and without having to outlay a bunch of capital right now that we don't have after listening to that report. I think I'm done, boss. Unless somebody else has something else.
We don't have any holes when the title change from Clearlink to us on that truck.
No, we have a free and clear title on that truck. I looked at it with Kathleen last week.
Okay, since the last regular board meeting, we've had 13 medical calls, 5 fires, 1 motor vehicle crash, 5 mutual aid fire incidents, and 1 missing person search. Volunteer training, we hosted a visit from Dr. Bond, our medical advisor in April. For medical training, our responding volunteers from community educated fire medical training. 2 firefighters attended Firefighter 2 Academy and are registered for NIC and for fire instructors training. A number of us plan to attend Wildland Fire School in Rouge next month. 2 of our firefighters plan to attend Southern Oregon Wild Fire School FF or national. Their last 2 years, grants in progress. The CWBG, these were the same as last month, where we've requested a new truck to replace the Ford F-250 that we have. We have not heard back on that. ODF training reimbursement grant, including fire shelters, we've applied for that, not heard back. And Tele generator backup system and the pancake breakfast supplies and gift certificate, again, those are in progress. Grants awarded. We have been awarded the seasonal staffing grant. That check has at the account, and this will allow us to have 2 firefighters on shift most days during the upcoming fire season, and fire season will likely start June 1st, coming up soon. And thank you again, Kathleen. Partnerships. On April 28th, we teamed up with District 4, Jacob Fire Department, White Oak HOA, complete the challenging fuels reduction project. I continue to meet with JCFD4, Shady Cove, and discuss combined training and projects. Christopher King and I met Chief Prim on Stone Drive to inspect an engine that they are considering donating to our district. I'll be helping to instruct the firefighter instructors course coming up. We met with Pacific Power in Prospect and toured one of their power facilities, the one that's off Mill Creek, straight down the river from there. They have 3 power plants in Prospect.
4 power plants. There's 2 down there, down where we were, 1 up top, and then 1 out there at substation 3.
P1, P2.
Yeah.
We're in discussions with the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers to plan and schedule a combined training with them to specific with power plant accidents. So we're going to try and get Dr. Bond to come in on that and work with us. There's some special things that you would never see in a homeowner getting themselves electrocuted that you might see in a power plant accident. And so if we were to ever see that, we'd want to have an idea of what we're doing. Shady Cove, Kathleen and I met again with Shady Cove and State Fire Marshal regarding continued fuel reduction work we do them every month. I spent a full day last week meeting with ODF and with the Forest Service, law enforcement regarding some current challenges, with fires next door to our district. And I met with the budget committee for their input. For the good of the order, I have Chris's support coming up. For the good of the order, last month we were dispatched for missing person search. 6 of our volunteers joined Jackson County Sheriff's deputies and lots of neighbors for a shotgun style search, which means just going out from the last point scene until search and rescue can get there and establish their process. We never got to that point, fortunately. A couple of hours later, the child was found nearly a mile from home, exchanging words with his canine companion. One of our EMTs performed a physical exam, including a couple of sets of vitals, and the patient was released to his mother. So that was a good day.
Any questions? Okay, then, next order of business, I'd like to, go ahead and nominate, either Guy or Mike to be a member of the board.
Do we know which one of them is running in Bob Scott's position?
Unfortunately, neither of them, I'm actually running for Scott's position.
Okay.
So, because it would have been easy if that was the case. I
Right,
would have
just
brought
put that one in.
brought that up. I checked it out, and actually I'm running for what was Bob's position. So we just need to nominate one of them to the current position for the next couple of meetings. And then, in person, they're gonna.
Right, well, they're both gonna be in and for the whole meeting. I'll second that, I guess.
All in favor?
Aye.
Or have Mike. We're good.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's 31. So. You just put your name in it. Okay. Board member. You have the wrong year on it. Okay. And just another penalty of perjury, we solemnly swear to support the Constitution of the United States organs, to faithfully care my duties as board member for the Prospect Rural Fire Protection District, following all policies.
For the good of the order, Mr. Scott, both the policies, just like the new guy office.
Okay.
Pick that up.
Okay, that was good. The policy book that was, Bob, is at the URL office. Great. Okay, next is Chris is gonna give us an update on the cycle. Meredith?
Right, so as everybody can see, the building currently is wrapped with high-back, so that all of the main structural additions that had to be done to the building is complete. They did find that the north wall that was at the stairwell, the 2x4 studs, were not connected to the bottom plate, so that whole wall was loose.
That's why it was bouncing.
That's why it was moving around with the new type of load that's applied to the building. That was the only section. The rest of it was fine. The studs themselves were all in fantastic condition. There was no rot, there was no insect infestation or anything. The building itself is actually in very good condition. Even all the roofing, the underlayment of the roofing is all good. Everything, so they were able to actually get ahead of schedule on all of it, and they were actually very shocked. Everybody was actually very shocked. All the seismic hold downs are in place and approved by the county, and so that's why the building is completely closed up now. So now it's more the slower part of the project, waiting for windows and big doors. The windows are due in on around June 4th, so as soon as the windows are in, let's start putting siding on the exterior. Roofing won't be done until later into the summer. The big doors, those are a 6-week lead time, and the only hang up that I do last week or the week before was the motors, trying to get the right size motor in with the clearance that we currently have, which is small. So I will get an update on that on Wednesday to make sure that the motors have been ordered and the doors have been ordered. That's going to be our longest lead time. All the man doors are in process. Interior doors, we have to pick a shade of wood color. So, yeah, so there's just a lot of small stuff that has to be done left, and it's basically up to the fire department, the main shareholders of the project. So, like I said, the project's actually flying along really well, which we're very pleased with. They're getting ready to redo the foundation for the exterior steps for the main interior building. They're cutting that today, and then they'll start getting rid of that section so they can actually get the entrance revamped. So that's kind of where we're at. Electrical record will be done this week. As soon as that is done, the drywall will start going in, all the repair of the drywall and everything will start going in. So project's moving along, actually really nice. Any questions?
Thank you.
Hey, Melissa, levy committee.
So the levy committee has spent a lot of time doing that for tomorrow, where the operations levy is on the ballot in the amount of $1.39 per thousand. The committee met twice since March, and we worked on additional methods of community outreach. We held a community, I was here last month, we held a community fundraising dinner on April 26th with an opportunity to answer questions and also register people to vote if they needed that. We designed a Vote Yes brochure that was mailed to every address in the district at the end of April with over 75 endorsers listed in that brochure. We created a mailer to respond to an anonymous yellow card urging people to vote no. We staffed a levy information center at the old gas station for the past 2 weeks. Thank goodness the weather was a little warmer. We created a sign for the current station retrofit, explaining that the project is funded through a special grant because there was a lot of misunderstanding in the community that those were local funds that were being used. So in summary, because I'm hoping this is my last report. The committee has held 23 meetings that were open to the public since June of 2024. They studied the 13 goals that were established by the fire board for the department and developed 2 draft levy options that made significant progress towards 6 of those goals. We mailed out a survey to every residential and commercial address in the district to show the proposed levy options and gather input on community priorities and costs and what they were willing to pay. We held 3 community forums to collect feedback to determine community priorities and evaluate costs. Then we developed a 3rd levy proposal, which better reflected the community priorities that came through in our survey effort. And we reduced the cost by 50 cents per thousand with those adjustments. So we were happy about that. We mailed 2 informational brochures over the past year to everyone in the district, and a 3rd information card responding to an anonymous mailing. We developed 2 fact sheets that were distributed during access events and, just the regular food bank. And we also canvassed our 3 local mobile home parks and handed out that information. We held 4 fundraising events, and those funds have been used in support of the fire department, and anything remaining will be directly given to the department. We held a chili feed in November. We created a fire department calendar, first one ever in December. We held a dessert social in February and a wonderful Italian dinner in April. We also collected statements of support and endorsers for the voters pamphlet. We staffed the Levy Information Center for 3 weeks during April and May, and that provided a place where community members could get answers to their levy questions. And I want to give special thanks because our dedicated fire department volunteers helped us set up and tear down a levy event. And Stanley Walker was a wonderful chef for 2 of our events. Jesse Brownlee created a great and very informative PowerPoint presentation for the February event. Charlie Woolers created our fire department calendar as well as 2 videos about the department. The Prospect Historic Hotel provided that space for the Levy Information Center. And I'm probably leaving somebody out, and I apologize for that. I want to thank our levy committee members that include Joyce Durkin, Ron Lee, co-chair Doreen Orner, Kathy Kinzer, Jamie Regal, and Bob Jones, who was our resource person extraordinaire, because he is ordinary. They worked hard reviewing information and asking questions and collecting input, proposing levy options, going back to the drawing board to reflect community priorities and reduce costs. They staffed the Levy Information Center, and they diligently tended to this effort for the last 12 months. So they've really been heavily involved, and I really appreciate everything that they've done because we filled in for each other when need be and worked as teams, and it's just been a good experience. I feel that support. We want to encourage anyone who's not yet filled out their ballot to turn it in and vote. It must be postmarked by tomorrow or deposited in an elections ballot box by 8 p.m. tomorrow, and the closest box is in front of Eagle Point Library. We'll keep our fingers crossed all day tomorrow and hope that voters will approve a thoroughly considered proposal to save our emergency medical services and significantly improve the department's ability to fight fires, to save lives and property. And I should also say that I'm sure all of the levy committee members want to thank those members of the community that have really stood behind everything that we've been trying to work through this year to come up with a workable proposal, and it's really been appreciated, the support that we've felt from the community around that. So,
Melissa, you've done the yeoman's work. You've done. Thank you so much. We really appreciate it.
Any questions on the report? All right, I have on here, put on Chiefs agreement. We talked about this at the last board meeting, and my feeling is that the can has been kicked down the road too long, And at the end of the road, it's time to pick up. So I want to propose that we go ahead and approve the current, agreement with the chief. Or it will obviously be revisited by the next board, especially, should the levy pass, it would be revisited anyway. But we need to have something in place to protect both the district and the chief, and it's just gone too far. So this would be in place until the new board takes effect, and then that new board should have a deadline of getting a revised agreement in place prior to by September, so that we're all covered. We've seen the agreement, we had a discussion about that proposal. We'll need a motion first, and we'll get it done. Well, yeah, I propose that we adopt the previously discussed, chief's agreement between the board and the fire chief.
I would make a motion.
Okay, yeah, I make a motion that we would adopt this.
Second.
Any discussion?
I'd like to know if we agreed to send it to our attorney to look at, well, we made a motion to do this.
An
That's what
agreement?
we talked about
Well,
all the time.
I think if the one, whatever the next board would put together, we could get a consult with an attorney. This has not been seen by an attorney, but it is just an agreement. It's not a contract. So an agreement can, I think, whatever we really want it to do. If it will just outline expectations for both parties. And I think it will be revised, should the levy pass, it will definitely be revised, or it would be revised by the next board. But I think something needs to be in there.
So you've got the same agreement that we saw last month, last week,
Yeah.
or last month, I mean, yeah.
Mhm.
I said everything I had to say last month, so anything else I'm saying, yeah. I don't think. And
So this is just basically a job description and expectations from both parties.
Yes,
And
It's not
no,
really a job, not a job description. It's just, an agreement and understanding of the, responsibilities of the board and responsibilities of the chief.
It protects him and it protects the board.
And I will say that some of this is,
It's
some of
not-
this is actually in the policy book, but it just makes it clear what the expectations are.
this does not affect light limb eyesight or property over $10,000.
No.
Section 10, which does, include, can include, financial liability or, property damage over $10,000. that would, that's the only thing in, otherwise this looks just like every other hiring letter I've ever gotten.
I don't even understand what you mean. I guess I don't know what you're doing.
As I'm reading it here rather quickly, the district agrees that it shall defend, hold harmless, and indemnify the chief for all advanced claims, suits, actions, errors, or other omissions in legal proceedings brought against the chief in his individual capacity or his official capacity, provided the incident arose while the chief was acting within the scope of his employment. If in good faith opinion, opinion of the chief, conflicts exists as regards to the defense of any such claim between the legal position of the district and chief may engage counsel, in which event the district shall indemnify the chief of the counsel. That one right there, I don't have a link.
So I can explain why that's there. And fire chiefs have that in their contracts because sometimes you go to save a house and you're not attacked in the driveway on the way to save the house. And then the homeowner says, fire department owes me a new cat. And the fire department said, we were doing everything like we should have. And they said, well, then that chief cat, he was in charge. He owes me the cat. So what it says is as long as the chief is doing his job as agreed upon and acting like he should and within the scope of what a chief does, if a lawsuit comes for a new cat, the fire department hires the attorney and says the chief is doing everything he should have been looking at. I guess we'll fight this in court. It means I don't personally have to take on lawsuits for the person that isn't happy with that will come up their house fire or wildland fire or medical call.
Now that you said that and I reread it, I can see what it says there. Yeah, this looks a lot like every other. Yeah, this agreement here at the end says that it can be reopened by either party, which speaks to what Pam was talking about. When the next board gets sworn in and put in place, this is going to be reopened and addressed again. It seems like we'd be throwing a lot of money towards an attorney for a document that's only going to be in effect for what, 60, 90 days maybe?
Yeah, it would be the next board can decide whether or not it's going to be an agreement or if it's actually going to be a contract. But in either case, I think that it would be a document that we draft and perhaps get a consult from an attorney as opposed to paying an attorney to draft it, which would cost a whole lot more. We haven't got that in the budget. So things, should the levy pass especially, then things will change. But even if that isn't the case, the next board can take up with it. We'd like to have an agreement. It also suggests that the agreement should be reviewed annually based on the same calendar, not calendar year, the same calendar that would be.
In section 2, the term states right here that this expires June 30th, 2026.
Right, that should really change.
So this has an expiration, so this is and also there's a number of things I'm seeing here that I'm gonna have to change. So yeah, this is only gonna be in effect for 60 days, maybe.
And then the new board will do that.
Yeah, and if we do put this in place, then that's going to start the new board to make it a priority to get this done and reworked. Okay. But I'm understanding this. All right.
I'd like to move that we go ahead and approve this interim agreement.
Oh, we have to vote.
We have a motion and a second already.
Okay, then we need to vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
I'm voting for it, yes.
We're looking at me, we're going down.
Yep.
Go.
Okay, Lon?
No.
Clay?
No.
Aye.
Yes.
And we will bill. Yeah, you keep it. Yeah. Okay, like the board issues calendar. So, Joyce, you wanna look at that?
Okay, so, we're just trying to look ahead a little bit. I'm thinking it might be a good idea to have a little bit of structure. Like, our first meeting, maybe talk about, we'll want one meeting to have about a policy review and our policy, which we do yearly. One is review the agreement with the fire chief, which we do yearly. One, we will have an evaluation of the fire chief, will be a meeting. But if we kind of structured it out, we kind of have an idea, a calendar of what we're going to do month by month, and that for instance, people in the community would know what to expect. The board members would know what to expect. It's kind of a general framework of how we might run our meetings year by year.
That obviously would be subject to change depending on what might come up, what issues might come up, but to sort of designate a topic every month that we're going to work for, and whether that would require an extra work session to deal with that. Then at least we could plan out what we're going to do for the year. Is what I'm suggesting.
And we still have additions you're talking about, just have like one basic idea. So what, ideas are you ladies thinking of? I mean, the policy, right off the bat that I can think of.
Right.
What else?
Well, for one, if you have 6 employees, state law requires that you have a policy handbook. And there is such a thing that's kind of a template that you can, I think, basically put prospect fire department in, but they have a template for that you can use. But we need to have an employee handbook because we have almost 6 employees right now.
But, well,
With the summer ones,
we have 4 staff and 14 responding volunteers. So I guess it
but they're
depends
not
on how you define.
employees, but if we have the grant people,
Yeah.
then they count, they
I think
I mean,
if we
they
had
would
one-
count under our,
If we had one employee, we should have it on paper and agreed on
Yeah.
and transparent and understood. So I think
so anyway, we need that handbook, so that's something we're gonna have to work on, which we haven't even addressed up to this point.
Another thing is the training too. The trainings, Bob had mentioned those sort of things. If the board can do certain training, then we can reduce our insurance by 10%. And I think planning that and making sure that we do our training, whether it's something we do better or we're going to do individually, whatever would be necessary to get that documentation to you and get our, potentially get our insurance rates on.
I did find the SDAO, email, that must be the one you mentioned, that showed how to do that. I can forward it to everybody, I think, but SDAO, I'm not looking forward to this bill for the
I looked at some of it online as well, to see the site.
Yeah.
And, it wasn't completely clear to me which ones qualified, but I think that's something we need to identify.
Yeah.
And just get it done.
Just work it out, ask questions, find out what we need to do and who we need to contact.
So Catherine and I worked on that list this year, and we just got a check cut for the Henderson check back for $500 and something off of our premium for the discounts we could get.
Good.
But there's a few more points for things board members can do to make that more.
Yeah, I think that would be important. That's significant.
And figuring out, I mean, I took quite a few trainings last year, but I don't know if they connected to the right places, you know what I mean? So if they counted for anything.
Yeah.
So that would be something else that we would want to put on our calendar to be able to.
So at least discuss it.
Yeah, to discuss it, come up with a plan. And, would be one, that, and I'm sure that there's gonna be other things, policy, that is another one, to decide exactly how much the policy gets to do, and any revisions to that. So there would be topics, things that we could work on every month and have a target for what we would do. It's a suggestion.
I think it's a good idea. I think, right now, what I wrote down was policy book, for, training. I wrote down training, but we're specifically talking about board training,
Yes.
right? Okay. That's a good start. I mean, I don't know how we want to do it. If we want to think about it and add more, or if we want to wait till the new board gets here, or if we want to just go with those three.
Well, we have
I'm
more
sure
than
there's
that.
more that we can work on. We have 11 meetings
Yeah.
per
Well,
year.
One is gonna be reviewing and revising the fire chief contract. One would be the fire chief evaluation, because once we get that set up, how we're going to, to make our, figure out what our evaluation is gonna look like and how that's gonna be, then hopefully we actually have the evaluation and go over that. That's gonna be one.
So I have a question. As far as the evaluation, I guess first we have to figure out how we were gonna do the evaluation, on what form. I'm guessing, I don't know, could that be done in an open meeting like this? Yes, or because the actual evaluation has to be done in a closed meeting, right? But I mean, figuring out the form, I don't know if that has to be done in a closed meeting, or if that's something that we can do in an open meeting.
Well, it would be an open meeting. We might want to do a work session.
Well,
Special
doesn't
work
the
session,
actual
but not
evaluation
actually-
have to be done in an executive meeting with just the board members? I mean, when we actually do the evaluation, we could probably figure out maybe what form we're gonna do, right? So that everybody's on that same page. That might be, I don't even know if that would have to be done in
Yeah, I
an
think
executive session,
executive session is probably good.
or just
Or the
coming up with a
actual
form.
evaluation.
Well, the actual evaluation,
The
I know.
actual
there has to
evaluation.
be done. I'm talking about just coming up with a form.
Right.
We can do that in the other meeting. But I would be able to, right? I mean, there's nothing wrong with the public knowing the form that we use to evaluate the fire chief. I wouldn't think they not she necessarily maybe know the evaluation finally give them, but the form, right?
I think that would.
Well, yes, I mean, I don't know about that executive session thing for the form. I would think.
No, that would be the evaluation. That would just be.
Okay, work on the form, right?
So you're thinking about what other things could be in a calendar, and we'll set the priorities with the order of what really would need to be done next month. So that we have a topic that we're going to tackle.
Or, one, reviewing the goals and seeing how close we are to getting to the goal.
Yeah.
Yes,
No, I was looking.
Mhm.
Well, that's six. Personally, I think that that's enough to go with now, seeing how the board's totally gonna change
Mhm.
soon anyways. And I think getting their input would be a plus. I mean, some of these are easy, right? Policy book. I mean, you know, but seems how we're gonna have a bunch in the face.
Mhm.
Uh,
Yeah, but this is just
Just
to
a start.
put the idea out there that we are going to tackle it off. And that will, I think, that will give us, and that if we know what the topic is going to be, if we doesn't change things. If we know what the topic is going to be, then we can be thinking about it during that month and be prepared to talk about it.
Yeah, and some of these might take more than one or two,
Correct.
right?
Correct.
First meeting.
Okay.
Good bottom put together. That's the proposal for the board meeting change.
Yes, in the event that the levy does pass, then, there is a different calendar for the budget. We would have to have, and he's already prepared for the, public notice and everything, and contingencies, you know, he's on vacation, he can basically pull the trigger and say, okay, you know, go ahead and run public notice if that's the case. What it would be is that, May 28th, the notice would be published for the budget committee meeting in the Upper Oregon Independent and, on the website, and posting the notice at post office and other locations. The budget committee would meet to review the budget, and set the tax levy, on June 9th. The second meeting, if necessary, would be June 16th. So the notice of the budget hearing would be June 18th. And the budget hearing would be June 23rd. And it would, well, no, we would actually have to move the board meeting back a week. Instead of being on the third Monday, it would be on the fourth Monday, which is the 23rd, 14th. So our board meeting would be on the 23rd, and that's when we would have to vote on the budget. So we won't know that until after the election tomorrow. We see how it's going, and at that point, we would send out a notice that our board meeting will be delayed by a week. And all the, you know, things would be published about the budget.
We need to vote on that, right? Is that-
Yeah, so
Yeah.
we need to vote on, the contingency of changing our board meeting by,
I make a motion that if the order passes, that we go with Bob by schedule for next month.
I'll second that. Mark,
Yes.
Clayton,
Yes.
Ron?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, open for public comment. 2 minutes, any comments from the public? No,
Public's quiet today.
quiet today.
It was awesome that you guys working things out.
Anytime.
Thank you.
Gotta move forward. Okay, then, I move to adjourn the meeting.
I'll second that.
Well, thank you, everybody.